Hello, and welcome to the Focusrite CTE webinar. I hope you all had a great day today. Thank you for joining us at the end of your day. My name is Ashley Adams, and I am your substitute host, Focusrite's Director of Partner Development, the wonderful John Merchant. Was all set to moderate this conversation. However, he has been delayed by travel. So I'm going to step into his very big shoes and moderate this conversation as well as contribute to it. Here is an important message from Focusrite. Focusrite believes that setting students up for success in the audio industry starts with access. That's why they are deeply invested in the CTE community, supporting the teachers and administrators who provide students with the real-world skills they need to thrive. Their goal is to be a true partner to you. Beyond providing professional gear, they want to help you navigate the world of CTE programming and planning. So I am really excited and honored to be in conversation with our other two guests who you will meet in a few moments. But I wanted to quickly introduce myself. I am the executive director of the Creative Educators Network. We are a nonprofit organization committed to supporting educators just like you who are building the creative workforce of tomorrow. We do that through industry-aligned professional development. And in fact, I was just working with the audio teachers in Compton Unified just a couple weeks ago, and I want to say hi to those of them who are here. Our organization just went through a rebrand, so you may know us as the Arts, Media, and Entertainment Institute, but we have the same mission. We just have a new name, Creative Educators Network, and we're here to support you in your work to support the next generation of our creative workforce. A little bit later, I'll drop our website in the chat. But right now, I am thrilled, honored, excited to introduce you to our other two guests. Welcome, Sketch and Allie Snyder. Great to be here with both of you. Allie, can you share a little bit about where you're calling in from today and the work you do in audio education?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our panel for the night. My name is Allison, or Allie. Most people call me Snyder. I teach over at Hunters Lane High School in the Music City, so Nashville, Tennessee. I currently there teach music technology, choir, and piano through a grant program, which I'm sure I will talk about a little bit later. And we have a great time learning about everything from the very beginning of songwriting to recording, production, distribution, live sound, you name it, we dabble in a little bit of everything. And it's been a great, at this point, 3 years of our program so far. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie. Sketch, can you introduce yourself and share a bit about your work in LA?
Absolutely. I am live and direct here at our Beat Lab in downtown Los Angeles. I am the executive director of Music to the Ears Foundation and also the founder of Academics Beat Lab. Our focus is primarily creative pathway development and infrastructure and also supporting schools as an industry partner. So my background is in entertainment since the 1900s, as the students would say. So I have an extensive background, which I am now bringing all of my industry contacts, resources, and learnings into education to build creative pathways for students so that no parent will ever say, you won't get paid to do that. So whether it's social media, music, video design, DJing, podcasts, all of those creative careers that people didn't realize they were a career, we help develop curriculum for K through 12. And then we have partnerships with Loyola Marymount and also industry partnerships with brands like Canva and like other great resources that we then bring to educators to give students these amazing experiences.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Today's conversation, we're going to cover a lot of ground. We're going to discuss strong pathway development as well as funding and measurement of student success. I would like to invite everyone here to please use that super fun chat function to throw in your questions, your ideas. If something we say sparks some, you have a connection in your classroom that you'd like to share with this community, we invite you to put that in the chat. This session is really meant to be a conversation with you about the things that you're thinking about in your classrooms, and hopefully you'll have a lot of great resources to walk away from. So let's get started. We're gonna begin to talk a little bit about industry partnership and building a strong pathway. So my first question will be for Allie, and then we'll take it over to Sketch. What does meaningful industry partnership look like in your program, and how do you identify and sustain those relationships over time?
Okay, so in my program, some of our major partners right now and how we even have a music tech program at our school is through Save the Music and their music technology grants there. So they're a huge industry partner for us. But we've also worked with Focusrite, we've worked with Dolby. I've collaborated a lot with the Contemporary Music Center down here in Nashville, which is a one semester program that can be added on from a collegiate standpoint. It's where my husband went. Created Studios, which is a brand new Full Sail university sponsored program that is within a Walmart that they're hoping to expand out to other Walmarts, which has been really cool partnering some with them, as well as just having general good connections with our local colleges like Belmont, Lipscomb, MTSU. We're in a really good music and central area. And so for me, it's just a lot of it has been just having conversations with people and seeing who has what connections, where they're at, and how can that benefit our own program. And that might kind of push us one direction or another in how we go about the curriculum or what we focus more on that year. But sustaining those relationships has honestly just been lots of communicating, sending random check-in messages. Hey, let's go grab coffee. Let's go talk and see, how is your program growing? How is my program growing? How can we mutually benefit from any of these situations? Or within the industry, hey, it sounds like Dolby Atmos is a good example. Dolby Atmos is becoming the norm in our world now, where we're not just left and right stereo, we are full surround sound. So how do we get that accessible even all the way down to our public education high schools? How do we get students starting to work and be able to kind of understand Dolby Atmos? And so we collaborated with them about creating a one-off unit of Dolby Atmos at the high school level. And then in return, they helped us through Focusrite put in a Dolby Atmos system in our school studio. So a lot of it has just been starting conversations of, well, what can we do to take this to the next level? And how can I make sure that we're helping each other at the end of the day?
Great. Allie. Sketch, do you have something to add here about industry partnership?
Absolutely. As an industry partner, I've been fortunate to work with, for example, Focusrite, who sponsored a lot of students to go to NAMM dating back to, I believe, 2018, 2019. We've been doing field trips with students probably going on 8 or 9 years. We've worked with other companies like Pioneer DJ, which is now Alpha Theta. As I mentioned before, Canva is a great partner for us. We've also been able to co-produce events in partnership with USC Ivy and Young Academy, with Loyola Law School, and with even bringing students to our Beat Lab down in Los Angeles as a field trip experience, where during the Grammys, we did something called the Beat Brunch, where we had Grammy-nominated producers with students. And we've had the DJ for the Lakers here. We've had the team DJ for the Clippers from the Portland Trailblazers. And so those are, again, the experiences and opportunities that maybe students wouldn't have access to. We've also produced assemblies at schools where we did a creative career day and we had the team DJs come out and talk to the students. As far as sustainability, I think as an industry partner, we're always ready to make ourselves available to the schools and to the districts. But what sometimes happens is there's a changeover in staff. there's a changeover in funding restrictions or requirements. And then there's just every year in education, there's that new thing that no one expected. And so it's overcoming those hurdles in the fall and trying to quickly get over the hump so that we can get the programming in place, hopefully before the Thanksgiving break, worst case scenario, coming out of the winter break. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think teachers, the best partnerships are developed over time and they really do grow. So, don't be afraid to start very small with a partnership. If you have somebody in your community and, just one little thing, and Allie, I think you said it, making sure that it's reciprocal, that it's not just like, hey, can you do this thing for me in my classroom? But hey, can you do this thing for me in my classroom? And what can I do for you? Like what would be helpful to you in your business? Would a photo with students in the local paper be something that would be good for you? So really looking for how can you scratch each other's back in terms of building those partnerships. And really the best partnerships do grow over time. So, what can start as maybe just a guest speaker coming into your classroom or something really, really small can grow into a collaborative project where you're getting professional feedback on student work. You're taking students out maybe to tour facilities or do internships, things like that. These relationships, industry partnership, it does take a lot of time, a lot of effort, which is one of the reasons why it's so hard to be a CTE teacher, because you have a full-time job of teaching students. So to add building industry partnership, that's a lot. So that'll take us to our next question. And Sketch, we'll start with you on this one. So what role do you think that local businesses, production companies, or media outlets play in shaping curriculum? And how can you formalize that input?
So when it comes to shaping the curriculum, I think it's important that they operate as collaborators. Educators, of course, they bring the expertise in the teaching and student development, and then the industry partners bring their insight with the kind of workforce needs and the industry standard solutions, right, for the students. And when these individuals come together, I think, of course, that allows students to get the best of both worlds, to both gain the skills that are academically meaningful and also professionally and industry relevant. As far as formalizing that, we've been part of cohorts where there's like industry partners to support a school or support a school district. I think work-based learning partnerships are important. We've been involved in developing curriculum. So for example, I helped co-author a CTE AME course that was approved by the state of California that's now being implemented in several schools in LAUSD, for example, manual arts being one of them. And then I think in addition to that, with Music to the Ears, we have Music to the Ears as the community partner, academics as the industry partner, and then Leaders of the New School, which is our advisory and mentor network. So really it takes a village, right, to raise a student approach. And the more we can get involved, then the more we can then extend our network with professional, with industry, whether it's wellness producers, and then ultimately the students are able to benefit even more. And even teachers, we do a lot of professional development training for teachers also.
You touched on so many good things, Sketch, truly, especially with the local business and the production company side, and like using who's in your community. How can we help raise our students? I think when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking heavily on the media outlets and how does media in general shape some of our curriculum? What is the current trend? What is the current big thing? What are we talking about? What's brand new in music tech and becoming more and more big focuses for us? And I think the biggest thing I took from this question was just being flexible and knowing that there's going to be new things all the time in this industry, and remaining curious. So a lot of the times I'll see something new from media or from one of our local partners, and they're like, yeah, this is a big thing that's coming up. And I go, okay, tell me more. What can I do? What can I learn more about to help with this? And potentially integrate it in what we're already talking about in our class, but also being open to, hey, maybe the unit that I had planned right now is not as relevant as it used to be. And what if we took it a different direction and we learned more about something new? So just to me, it really spoke to, what can I constantly do to be flexible? What can I constantly do to try to stay on top of the times? And that comes a lot from our industry partners and media outlets, especially.
I would also suggest that that is a way to keep yourself engaged and interested in what you're teaching. Nobody really wants to teach the same thing over and over again. That gets really boring. So if you have great industry partners that you're talking to and you're connected to the industry in meaningful ways, then all of a sudden you have a spark that says, oh my gosh, in this unit, I can do this project instead of this one, or we can look into this, and it keeps you inspired, which I will argue is pretty critical. You have to be in love with your subject matter. You have to stay in love with it. So how do you stay, in love with it, is by constantly continuing to grow and challenge yourself. Awesome. Let's move into a difficult conversation. And Sketch, I think you already touched on this a little bit. Media arts careers generally can feel very inaccessible or non-traditional to families. So we'll start with you on this, Allie. How do you communicate the real earning potential, the career trajectories, to students and parents who might be doubtful about a path forward in these careers?
I don't know what you're talking about. Everyone's like, this is the most lucrative business. No one is ever hesitant about a job in music. But no, seriously, it is a constant question. And truly, a lot of students walk into it and their perception of what a career in music is you can be a music teacher or you can be an artist. And music teachers have at least some stability, or like that's the fallback career. But then artistry is the dream, and I'm going to be living on ramen pasta and on the side of the road for a little while, but we'll make it there. And it's just not realistic. And I think, especially as educators, it's our job to help expand the horizons of what does a career in music look like? What could it look like? And it's ever changing. A big resource that I go to a lot that has just fantastic resources, we'll send them to you for free, is NAM's Consider a Career in Music. Love that. That's super, super helpful because it really does break it down to, hey, this is a career in music. This is a career in music. This is a career in music. How do we get there? As well as kind of dispelling some of the myths of, I'm going to be having to scrape by for a really long time or most of my life, and then maybe I get this lucky break. And it's not really truly always like that. So that's for sure a big resource that I pull into, as well as I try to invite as many people into the conversation from our local music industry, whether they're my personal friends or friends through partnerships that are in a variety of different music careers. Maybe they're more on the technology side, and so they're working with LED and speakers and installing, or they're running gigs and tours and they're just setting up, tearing down, or maybe we are running sound in front of house. Maybe we are the artist on stage, and just bringing in as many different voices into the conversation of, look at this person, look at how wonderful and successful they are. They're wonderful humans, and that can be you too. Just opening that door for, this is what this could look like, to our students is really, really important. And then, of course, by proxy, their parents, to be able to see that and know that, hey, usually you can get the student on board because they're like, I want to do something, but the parents are like, but I'm worried about them. This is how we can make that pathway, that step forward. How can we make sure that they're really walking into this with success on their mind and a tool belt filled with tools to get them there?
I would think from my side, I start with sharing my personal story, which is I fell in love with music as a 2 year old when I used to attend concerts with my mom growing up in Ohio. And I was so small, I would be at the stadium. I couldn't see over the seat, but my feet would be swinging. That was my introduction to music. I fell in love with it. Around 12 years old, I told my mom I wanted to be a DJ, and she thought I just needed one turntable, and that would be enough. I said, I need two turntables and a mixer. She didn't understand why I needed two turntables and a mixer. Fast forward, I'm about to graduate high school, and my mom just does not understand why I'm so set on even being interested in this, right? Much less thinking about it as a career. So my mom really didn't support me getting into a creative pathway. In fact, she kicked me out of the house 3 weeks after I graduated high school. Fortunately for me, though, I had a happy ending. 3 years later, I was able to purchase a house. And this year is my 26-year anniversary since I've had a full-time job and my 30-year anniversary of buying the house. So when I talk about my lived experience and turning what you love into a career, I start with that, where there's no denying that it's possible. And I'm not an infomercial. I have so many of my friends that do what they love. The DJ for the Clippers, the DJ for the Lakers, they all do what they love for a living. But when it comes to explaining to parents, there's two parts. A lot of times parents just don't know how to understand what their child does. They don't know how to support them. And I think it starts with, if the parent doesn't understand how to support them, they can just start by saying, I don't understand it, but I support you. And is there anything that I can do to help? And can I show up for you, whether you're doing a performance or practicing, or even though my mom really didn't get it, she was kind of supportive where she would take me to buy equipment when I was not old enough to drive, which again shaped where I am now. But helping families to understand that on a global scale, when you think about it, we all love music, we all love movies, we all like watch television or Netflix or whatever streaming platform. And behind every song, TV show, film, live event, or social media, there's a team of professionals who are getting paid to do this, whether they're producers, engineers, designers, or entrepreneurs. So helping parents understand that within CTE is preparing students for both the technical side and then also giving them skills that are transferable into other industries. Even though I started off as a DJ, I now own and operate multiple businesses. And my lateral skills that I understood and learned through DJing, I translate into so many careers in marketing and business development and entrepreneurship. So just letting them know that there are real examples. And now students can point to streamers, they can point to podcasters, and they're not making small amounts of money. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars. And so not that we prefer arts over STEM, but I always like to highlight to parents, being a creative is one of the few careers a teenager can have where they can make more money than their parents as a teenager. And that is the reality of the industry. And so if we can just encourage them to give the students the confidence and have that support at home, have that support within their families, then it reinforces the support that they get within the school context, which ultimately makes happy, fulfilled creatives and contributors to society.
I love everything that you both just said. As I mentioned, I was in Compton a couple weeks ago, and one of the teachers, Joel Adams at Compton Early College, does a project where his kids, they recorded a song, they mixed it, they mastered it, they released it, they created the album art. And I think, projects like that, where you really take a group of kids and you say, go do it. Like, don't talk about it, just do it. And then they realize, oh, wow, there are a lot of jobs here to, it's not just about this music in my head or, me playing this instrument. It's about all these other roles that come into play. And, as you said, Sketch, like kids can get their music up on Spotify. They can do it. They can do it now. And how exciting to have educators behind them, supporting them, giving them space and the ability to do this work. I think some of the most exciting CTE classrooms are where, the kids get to work They work on teams and they do it. And man, they learn so much. I would also say that there are some really great economic resources out there for teachers to use. Online is one. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. Civil Economics is an economics firm in California that does a lot of work around creative economy. But bringing in the numbers, I mean, connecting the dots for your students and their parents is really important. There's a lot of great jobs in audio. And a lot of parents just don't know that that's the case, that their kids can actually make a really great living. So you've got to, as an educator, do a little bit of that work to connect the dots for your parents. Um, yeah, no, this is all
Absolutely.
super, super exciting stuff.
Really quick, Ashley, I like to chime in too. Like one thing that we don't even really need to explain is that there aren't silent movies anymore. Everything has sound, specifically within an audio context, whether it's a cartoon, whether it's a commercial, everything has sound, but everything also has design, has engineering. Then there's the marketing. Then there's all of these different creative pathways that lead into these different industries. For us, we're focusing on creative pathways into entertainment, but we're also going to expand within creative pathways within the automotive industry, right? Whether you're designing campaigns for the companies, whether you're producing an event, right? All of these things that we take for granted, there is someone behind the scenes getting paid to do what they love. So why not be that person?
Yeah, why not be that person? Awesome. Let's move into measurement, everybody's favorite topic of conversation in education. So Allie, how would you say you measure the success of your program beyond graduation rates, and how do those metrics tell you what you need to know?
So we are having been an earlier program, so we've been around for about 3 years now with music tech. So to me, I see success through, I mean, truly the number of students who have taken this and have chosen to pursue careers within music, or have chosen to minor in music, or other things like that. And that range, of course, in the education world, grades, seeing improvements there is always great, as well as just truly student engagement with the program. How many students do I have that are interested in signing up for this class, or are showing up on the days during lunch when we offer this as a club? They're just excited to learn about that. And those are really, at the moment, the big indicators for me, and is enough to tell me, okay, we're moving in the direction that I'm hopeful for. We're seeing class size growth. We're seeing engagement. We're seeing students who, gosh, I have students who have graduated who have released singles after their first singles being released within our school walls, and that has shown great success. In the future, I'd love to see success rate through things like earning higher education credits or certificates or things like that. That's a big goal of mine, is to help our students become what we consider ready graduates here in Nashville. So they have the papers and the credits to follow them into the higher education world, and how many of our students are actually earning that. But those are just some of our early indicators of success. Are students enjoying what they're doing? Are they coming back? Are they showing up day to day? Are they signing up for the class? And even better, on the other side, did they actively want to pursue it at the end of the day? If it was an interest to begin with, they felt that the program formed, cultivated in them. So those are our big indicators at the moment.
I love it. Let's shift to funding, and talk about how we pay for these incredible programs. Audio programs are not inexpensive to run. They require a lot of hardware and software. So, Allie, can you talk a little bit about how you fund your program?
Absolutely. And also, just a complete side note for our friends who are asking questions in the chat, we see you, not ignoring you. We're going to answer questions at the end. Thank you guys for your questions. Please keep throwing them in the chat there, and we will come around to you. Okay, so funding wise, we started our program with the Save the Music High School's Music Technology Grant. They have a bunch of different grants that they offer. That has been a huge impact to our program. Um, Exchanging direct experience feedback for equipment or experiences. So again, when we partnered with Dolby and Focusrite and we were trying to build out and help them with their curriculum building so they could offer that, they in exchange helped us out some and offered some speakers and some things like that. So again, what can we do to make things mutually beneficial on that side? But truly, some of my favorite things are just inviting my principal down to my room. Um, because at the end of the day, our principal decides where the funding goes in our school building. And I want her to see the direct impact when she chooses to let some of our school funding go towards our programs. It's really important for them to see that direct hands-on impact because I can go and I can explain to everybody. I can scream from the rooftop, this is really helpful for our students because, and we need this because, but until you see how it directly impacts the students that you're trying to advocate for, the program you're trying to advocate for, it really doesn't hit as hard. Having that direct, tangible view into our students' lives, that's really what ultimately matters. And of course, other grant programs are great too. I applied for the CMA Music Teachers of Excellence program, which was really wonderful, was very shocked and honored to be picked last year. And that provided some funding that I could then say, hey, we need this, this, and this. And it's now covered through that. So my biggest things have been grants, good relationships with my internal leadership in my school, showing those direct impacts, good industry partnerships. How can we be mutually beneficial and just run with it as much as they're willing to let me?
And then my experience as an industry partner has been, fortunately in California, there has been ample resources available, or at least in the beginning there was. Hopefully it continues to be. But there was Prop 28 here in California that allocated 1% of California's budget. So there was a windfall of 967 million specifically for music and arts education programs a couple of years ago. And then when it comes to CTE pathways, we've experienced working with schools. When you launch a CTE pathway, there's startup funding. And then there's other funding that's not available to the second year. Then there are programs or partners that may come on board and maybe they don't start until the second or third year because they want to make sure the pathway is up and running. So we've experienced different, almost like a combination of funding resources that we have been able to use. Fortunately for us, we've had experience on one side being able to help schools secure enough funding to purchase over $200,000 in equipment. And then on the other side, we've been able to help a local high school launch their CTE AME pathway and then get them over $200,000 in direct program funding. So state-of-the-art equipment, Apple computers, just almost anything you can ever imagine or dream of, we've been able to secure for them. So I would encourage teachers to look at the traditional and non-traditional funding mechanisms. I would also ask new CTE teachers to talk to their either other CTE teachers, administrators, or just some of their friends who might be teachers in other cities or states, just to ask them and pull together. It's almost like a looking for different resources is like shopping, right? And so you just have to go to all these different places and glean what you can. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, I'll just state the obvious that the federal government does support CTE programs through Perkins 5. And a lot of states, such as California, have incentive grants so that you can get, additional funding from your state. California is, as you mentioned, Sketch, very fortunate. There's incentive grants, also K-12 strong workforce grants. But definitely do your research and see, where those different pockets of money are that are supporting creative workforce education or workforce education. Um, all right, let's talk about writing grants. Allie, when you write grants, what makes a strong grant? And then the second part of my question is, if you don't get a grant, how do you pivot? You know, if you've planned your program kind of hoping that you're going to get this, you know, new software, or, you know, whatever it is, and then you don't, what do you do? So first part is, what makes a really great grant application? What makes it, obviously you've written a few and you've won a few. So tell us what your secret sauce is. And then, you know, on the off chance you don't get it, what do you do?
The secret sauce is it's not really about me, it's about my students ultimately. While I may be the one writing it out and making it really nice, professional, packaging it up, at the end of the day, the biggest successes I've found is when my applications have focused so heavily on my students. How are we seeing things grow positively? How are we seeing the direct impact on the day-to-day lives of our students? How are we seeing them show up to school more often? How are we seeing their lives transform into joy, and being really open about talking about those experiences and providing the microphone and a way to my students. One of the best advice I've ever been told, and I can't remember who said it because I feel like I've been told a few different times, and I think we're all echoing the same person. So I wish I could give credit. Is just don't be afraid to tell your story. I am a very young teacher in the grand scheme of things. This is my 6th year teaching, and I've been at the same school for all 6 years. And I was terrified to write my first grant or grant application, because I felt, well, why would they pick me? Why would they pick my school? Like, I'm just starting out. I could make a million excuses. And then I had a few different people, a few different times just say, don't be afraid to tell your story. The worst thing that you get is a no, and that's okay. We pivot and we grow from there. But if you never tell your story, you never put it into words, you never actively just try, you're not going to get it. And everyone has a valuable story to tell, and everyone has a valuable program to share about, because every single one of our students is important in this world, and it's important we share about them too. We get to brag on them a bit. So then the opposite side, what happens when we don't get it? Because as much as I've gotten grants, I also don't get grants, and that's okay too. I ask myself, okay, what can I still do to make this concept accessible to my students? At the end of the day, what am I really trying to teach? Do I have to have the equipment to still teach the concept? And am I okay with not? I use a lot of simulations, especially when it's higher level concepts where I don't have a huge space to go into to play these 2 speakers to experience standing waves, until we finally got a sound system in our auditorium. Thank you. Things like that. How can I use simulations? How can I adapt projects or ideas I have to make it more group-based if I have a limited number of things? For the Dolby Atmos projects, we can't run Atmos on iPads. We're iPad bound, 1 per student in the class, but we did have 2 MacBook Airs. So how do we start the project on the iPads and then move them into the Airs and then work on panning and Dolby and things like that? So how can I make it more group-based, or sharing of time, signing up of things? But really, ultimately, at the end of the day, the concepts can be taught on just about anything. You can teach the same level of depth about compression on things like Soundtrap, BandLab, UStudio, GarageBand as you can in Pro Tools and in Ableton and in some of these higher level programs. The concepts are still going to be there. So whether or not I have the software that feels like is the direct transfer to the industry, whether I have the perfect microphone to explain this situation, we can still get the concepts. The concepts can always still be taught, regardless of if we get the equipment. Is it great when we do? For sure. But we can still make it happen without that there.
Great. I also think it's important for students to be prepared for the tools to change anyway. We all know they will. So, you know, professionals all the time are having to learn new tools. So if your students have those foundations down, they can go learn a new tool. If they don't have the foundations down, they're going to be in trouble. I love that. Okay, well, we're going to do maybe two more questions, and then there's a couple good questions in the chat, so we're going to go to those. Talking about equipment, particularly tools changing. Equipment in media arts depreciates, becomes obsolete very quickly. So, Allie and Sketch, maybe we'll start with Allie. Do you have ideas or suggestions around building a sustainable equipment replacement cycle into your budget planning?
Yeah, anytime I ask for anything or buy things, I think about how will this be functional in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? Will it still even be relevant? Can I find something that maybe it's slightly more, but is going to last us longer? But truly, the biggest thing, it sounds silly, but we can't assume that our students know how to take care of the equipment or that they always have malicious intent when they accidentally break things, because that is the truth. Most of the time, things break on accident. And so, something that I really value, and my students might get sick of me with it, but that's okay, is we learn how to maintain our equipment. What do we need to do to keep things protected? Making sure microphones are put away properly, making sure we know how to plug things in so we don't force the cables and then all the prongs get bent on the inside. And my favorite one is cable wrapping, because I love microphones. I'm a vocalist by trade, and so I'm always using XLRs. And that is pretty much a full-time job, with taking cables and unwrapping and rewrapping them for gigs and things like that. And so we make it fun. We make it a race. We'll learn how to do cable wrapping, and then I'll give students the same size cable, and they have a partner, and they have to see who can wrap it properly faster. And it's kind of like a big rock, paper, scissors tournament. So then you knock somebody out, and then you take their cord. So now you have two cords to wrap, and you have to find somebody with two. And by the end, you've got 6 cables and 2 people left, and who can wrap them the best. But we're learning cable management. How do we wrap cables well? So we're protecting the items that we have, less breakage in the long run, so we can actually keep those sustainably nice. When we can get new equipment, we can think ahead. That's great. But let's be good fosters of the things that we have currently that we can make last longer by taking good care of them.
Amazing. And on our side, when we're acquiring equipment for schools, we have an onboarding session where we train the teachers, and then we also send teaching artists to the school to show the students how to maintain and take care of the equipment. It's almost like a pride of ownership. Like when the students know that this belongs to them, and when you break it, it may not get replaced too quickly, then they tend to have more agency. We also, when we work with schools, we will have a few students dedicated as the, not cleanup crew, but they're responsible for making sure the equipment is in proper condition. As you know, sometimes students, we buy DJ controllers for schools. So just imagine you have different classes coming in using the DJ controllers. It's winter, a bunch of students are sick, so we let them know, hey, this is hand sanitizer. This is when you use it. Don't pour water on the DJ controller. That's not how you clean it. You have to use a microfiber towel. So all of those things are helpful because, Allison, the way you mentioned, like once you get into the real world industry, you need to understand how to take care of these things because they aren't $5 each, right? Sometimes cables are $200 or a controller is $2,000. So I think implementing that into the industry understanding is crucial because if you get a job, you go to a studio, you don't understand etiquette, and you pour a drink on an SSL board, well, that's the end of your job at that studio, right? And then there's the other side, which is what I call the tech cemetery. You go into some schools and you just see outdated equipment from such a long time ago. You wonder, like, why did they buy that instead of buying this? Like you mentioned, Ali, a couple of dollars more may have the equipment last a lot longer. I've had my Technique 1200 turntables since the 80s, and unless I drop them off of a cliff, they're going to last forever. Now, of course, there's this small maintenance that's involved, and then maybe some schools need to understand, hey, if you break this, you can next year get funding, and maybe there's even an incidentals. Like I always encourage teachers, hey, if you have a budget, see if you can roll over some of those funds for those contingencies in case something is broken, Or can you add a 5% buffer within the budget so that in case of emergency, something can get replaced? So that's been my experience.
Great. We are coming down to the end here. This is my last big question, and then I have a short question, but I do want to get to some of your questions in the chat. And it is about professional resources and organization. So I'm going to do a shameless plug for my nonprofit organization. We Creative Educators Network. We support CTE educators like you who are training the future of our creative workforce. We do that. We can come to your district and support you with professional development, writing your course outlines. We also hope you'll come to some of our fun events. One of them happens in LA every year, and different partners like Focusrite and Dolby and Soundtrap, Ableton. So many great partners are there, doing hands-on workshops, and really eager to support you in your classroom. So we hope that you will look at CEN, Creative Educators Network, as a resource. But there are a lot of other resources out there, and Allie and Sketch both have them and use them regularly. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Maybe we'll start with you, Sketch, here. What are your favorite professional organizations and resources that you turn to?
Absolutely. So again, not to shameless plug, but we have our internal network and then we have our industry partners. So internally, Music to the Ears serves as a community partner for the schools. So Music to the Ears delivers programs in schools, after schools, libraries, and then intercessions and also summer programs. Whereas academics is more of the industry partner. So academics develops the curriculum framework. In the Beat for Academics Beat Lab, we've built a complement of STEM and STEAM, which is business, entertainment, arts, and technology. So really, we are preparing students for the future with these innovative approaches to education, incorporating industry standards, immersive technology, forward-thinking technologies. Then through Leaders of the New School, that becomes our advisory and mentoring layer. Some of our advisors are VPs at NVIDIA, at Google. Some of them are teachers, they're team DJs. So again, it just takes so many people, right? Like even with Ashley, your program and your organizations and our programs, there's going to be so many more resources. Obviously, local community partnerships are really what's most important. What's in Nashville may not be in Los Angeles and vice versa. So we love to then bring in our industry partners like a Canva, like a Focusrite Innovation. And then we've also found that partnerships with local colleges has presented some very unique opportunities. USC, for example, has something called the Affordability Initiative, which is income qualified students can get a free 4-year ride for undergrad. They don't know about that. So when we do a panel of creative pathways and careers at Iveen and Young Academy, and then also we show students, maybe that's the first time they've ever been on campus. And having that experience might change the trajectory in their life. So I would say start with what you have, and then as a teacher, be curious in exploring new opportunities, whether it's networking at events or even calling some of the brands. I think, Allie, you were saying like sometimes you don't get funding, and maybe you don't get funding from one partner, but maybe there's 10 other companies that maybe they don't give you funding, but they'll give you product. So for me, anytime I hear no, I take it as not now, but I don't believe that that is a reason to stop asking.
I need you to put that on a shirt for me. Something like that. That's like words to live by there, not just on the like, it's not now, but that doesn't mean it's the door is fully closed, that there's somebody out there. I love that. Oh, goodness. Good stuff. I feel really supported here. Okay, some of my resources, love Save the Music. They're an amazing company, amazing program. They have great resources, especially for young teachers who are just really new to music technology in general, but want to dip their toes in. Maybe you don't have the original background. I have so much love for my undergrad program in music education, but music technology was not a major part of that. And so as someone who came from the education world and learned more about the industry through my own curiosity, through my loving husband who is in the industry, that was really important for me to build that knowledge. Shameless plug for my master's program at Southern Utah University. amazing, fully online program, really expanded so much of my knowledge. If you have the capacity to pursue that higher education, amazing. If you don't, look to the people around you in the industry and just constantly be a lifelong learner in that way. What can you learn about next? And we are at the pinnacle of technology so far in our world. There are so many resources and things through YouTube tutorials to constant brands. Focusrite has a bunch of resources and just helping you learn along the way. We're not completely bound to the university walls when it comes to learning, for sure. Okay, Focusrite, Save the Music. Full Sail University has a lot of resources as well when it comes to just designing curriculum or different topics within curriculum. And as they expand out their creative studios, I would love to see that like all across the nation. I think it's amazing. It's a really, really cool partnership to have within our schools and a great place to take a field trip to, for sure. They've been really good resources for that. And exactly like Sketch says, your local colleges are so helpful because what they're teaching there or what they're trying to get students from high school into their programs for can really influence how you teach your classes because you have a direct aim to go towards. You know what they're talking about there. You know what they're looking for in students. And so how can we get them that direction in general? So just a few other ideas there.
Super. We're going to jump into the chat. Jumping in. So this is Mike Blankenship. He says he runs an after-school arts ed organization, and he's saying he has had great success using Soundtrap with middle school students, creating in class or at home, regardless of gear. But high school is harder. Any success with high school CTE music programs, and he says specifically after-school programs. So do you guys have any advice for high school after school programs? It's kind of sounds like maybe looking for, he's worked with Soundtrap, but some other tool you might use.
Absolutely. I can give my input because a lot of times we have a course that is really just an introduction to DAWs. And we let the schools and teachers know students may select any, several DAWs. When I first started, I was using Cubase, and then there was Cakewalk. Of course, there was Pro Tools. Now on a digital level, there is BandLab, there's Soundtrap, there's GarageBand, there's Logic, there's so many other things, UStudio, like Ali was mentioning earlier. I think what's important is to introduce students to the fundamentals of DAWs and then do what's called like a habit stacking or just a knowledge stack, where now you can start scaffolding the information, knowing that you might run into a ceiling with this DAW, then you graduate to the next DAW. Having students understand what that looks like could then let them know this isn't the end of your learning journey, but just now a sign that it's time for you to graduate to the next platform.
Yeah, to continue building off of that there, I would almost ask the secondary question of what equipment do they have access to currently? Are they one-to-one with things like Chromebooks? Are they one-to-one with iPads in some places? Do they not have a one-to-one? And do we want to reach more into just that concept base and creating things with live sounds, found sounds, creating in just at our general environment? Do they have phones? Do they not have phones? Do they have Wi-Fi? Do they not have Wi-Fi? Because those are real things that I have to think about on a daily basis. I'm not sending things home because I can't assume they have that at their home. So with after school programs, it's truly, what do you have access to? How can you help them take whatever it is they have access to and just constantly be curious about the next deeper thing? Okay, we understand this. What's the next step behind it? Okay, I can make a good, steady 4 to the floor. I've got that. How do I add the next step? How do I go from there? How do I mix and master it to make it something that is actually shareable and feels more finalized and finished, and just have them be curious at every single step of, well, this is what it sounds like before, and this is what happens after. And I've noticed with my students that when they see, oh, okay, that's what's happening, and they realize they have the capability to do that, because a lot of the disengagement at the high school level isn't because they're just trying to be little boogers. It's because they don't believe that they can, and helping them see, oh, well, you absolutely can. Let's learn this concept. Let's take it here, and you can apply it, just like Sketch said, in any doll. Not necessarily being like you have to have this doll specifically. So those are my kind of follow-up questions to that, but also hopefully gave a little bit of guidance on it too.
We've got some great comments in the chat here, and I do want to say that we have folks from Indonesia on this call, which is so cool. And Sketch, you also have a fan. DCAT Cornelius wants to say thank you for all your help.
Oh, amazing. You know what? If you don't mind, I'd like to share a very interesting story. So this is how my professional network translated into a full circle moment. So DCAT was a professional touring musician. He's worked in the industry for over 40 years. He actually attended manual arts as a teenager, dropped out, went on the road to become a, famous touring musician, had 4 kids, I believe 5 now, and moved back. Leading into the pandemic, he said, you know what? All of my kids have graduated from USC and CSUN. I want to go back and pursue my education. So he got his GED. He went to Berklee School of Music, got his undergrad, went to CSUN, got his graduate, his master's in music administration. So randomly, I was working with manual arts in schools in LAUSD, and I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm working with this school. I want you to come to be a guest speaker." Then he tells me the story. I went to manual arts. I dropped out. I did this. I said, "You know what? They're about to launch a CTE AME pathway. Would you be interested in teaching?" He said, "I don't even know how to do that. Don't worry." I helped him get his CTE credentials. I recommended him. So he went from graduating to then coming back to manual arts, where he dropped out, to now be a full-time teacher. And then fortunately, we were able to help support him with that 200,000+ in funding. And he now brings not only a personal interest in helping the students, but also decades of industry knowledge. And so shout out to DCAT. Yes.
Woo! That is a great story to end our time. We are at time. So
Oh, wow.
I have to do a quick shout out. There was one question in the chat. What was your approach to developing curriculum? And I do want to just share one resource with everybody on this call, and that is California just adopted new state standards for CTE. And the way that they approach that process, it literally has taken 4 years. And they had an industry advisory that was extensive. So if you're in a state or a country that doesn't have great standards in audio, and you're really struggling to develop curriculum and you would like a guide, I strongly urge you to go find those standards. They're kind of hard to find, so maybe when we wrap up and put some resources together, I'll make sure there's a link, because literally they were just approved in November. But they are absolutely connected to the skills and the competencies that students need to succeed in careers in audio. And they are a great resource if you're looking to develop your own curriculum. On that note, last question for our group. What's your advice for a teacher out there who's starting an audio program and just wants to do right by their kids? Like, what do you say to them? Allie, you want to go first?
Give yourself grace, give yourself time. It does not happen overnight, and every step forward is a step. So be kind to yourself in that, and really try to prioritize pouring into yourself so you don't burn yourself out. It is really easy in this world, because we love what we do, to forget why we fell in love with it in the first place. So make sure you're pouring back into yourself and taking that time, no matter what. Every step forward is a step forward. You can have big dreams and big goals, but the little steps along the way are where the rubber hits the road. So take time with it. Also, for our friends with other questions, I'm sure I'll just jump into the chat and answer some of them on our YouTube live and all of that too. So I see some other good questions. I promise we're going to get to y'all. So cool stuff. Passing it on to Sketch.
I will actually echo a lot of that. In my conversations with teachers, I encourage them to manage expectations, both on the student side and on their own personal side, and realize this is a journey, right? It's not a sprint. And not everything is going to happen all at once. When you think about the process of nature and planting a tree, you plant the seed, and then sometimes that tree doesn't grow for some time. In some instances, it's years. Some are faster than others. But the point is, nothing happens overnight. So definitely understanding that wellness, self-care is very important. And then we like to provide resources where literally sometimes the teachers can't advocate for everything. So we're talking to administrators, we're talking to the district, we're talking to industry partners, we're talking to so many people in behalf of the teacher. I would definitely suggest that they find an industry partner. We're in California, so maybe we might not be as beneficial to someone in another state, but if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to help. If Jordan, you can drop my information in the chat. If I can't get to it now, I'm available on LinkedIn. And also, anytime you're in Los Angeles, feel free to reach out, and we'd love to host you at our space downtown.
Awesome. Sketch, Allie, thank you so much. I will share my bit of advice, and that is to find your community and find your people. There are other teachers out there who are teaching what you teach, and finding those people, finding colleagues that you can share, your wins and your challenges with is really helpful in this journey. So thank you all for doing the work that you do for students every single day, for showing up for them. There's nothing more important, and we celebrate you, and we hope that you have a wonderful night. So thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.